Going to be what we're going to move forward with anticipation to look at. Today, I want to talk to you about the virus that's going around. The virus is terrible. I mean, it's affecting people on a global scale. It also shows us how fragile our lives can be. But I want to talk to you about how we should respond to it as Christians, as believers. What should be our response to something like this? And I'm not. My intent is not to go in great detail about everything, but just to give us a Christian perspective on what we should expect and how God expects us to respond. Well, the first thing we need to know is that probably fear is not a good response. Overreaction isn't a good response. Now, let me just clarify a few things. First of all, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be careful. I think you should. Uh, I think we should follow all the guidelines by the CDC. We should follow whatever the president tells us to do. I mean, we need to make sure we're being safe, careful. We're not doing anything that is reckless or irresponsible. But at the same time, there needs to be also a certain level of trust and understanding. So one of the things that I want you to think about is Matthew 6. We're going to look at Matthew 6 and we're going to go to 1 John 3. But I just want to give you kind of a quick synopsis or recap of what he says there. The first thing he says in Matthew 6, and I'm going to drop all the way down here, he says, don't worry, then saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? The idea here in Matthew 6 is if you are worrying, he's telling you need to stop. That's the idea. There's no reason to be anxious. There's no reason to worry. Don't worry about all of these things. How you're going to supply them. And anxiety has become a very strong motivator for people. I mean, you go to the store and they're clearing out shelves and they are not thinking about anybody or anything except themselves when they do that. And that's because people are very, very worried. And this is, I'm going to say this, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of Christians are following suit with this. They're very concerned, very worried, to the point of anxiety, to the point where they are fearing for everything. But look what it says here. It says, if you're worrying, stop worrying. Don't concern yourself with it in terms of becoming too anxious, right? Why do you do that? Why should you not do that? For the Gentiles or the unbelievers are eagerly seeking all these things. I mean, that's what they do, right? But as for you and me, we need to seek God's righteousness, right? Verse 33, seek his kingdom, seek his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. All these things, God already knows you need them. God already knows that you need to have them, and he'll provide. He'll take care of that. That's what he's saying. So our response needs to start, first of all, with not being overly anxious for things. Careful, smart, responsible, not reckless, but we need to make sure that we're not to the point where it is crippling our ability to even function, seek God, read the Bible, pray with our whole heart. And our response needs to be right. I mean, we really need to be responding right. And I think that's where it all starts. When we're thinking about other people, then our response is right. When we're only thinking about ourselves all the time, we're buying everything so that we can keep it for ourselves to make sure that all of our needs are provided by buying everything out of the supermarket, buying the toilet paper, buying the masks, making sure it's all for us, all for us, all for us, because we need to protect ourselves. That's not trusting God. Now, am I saying you shouldn't buy anything? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you do need to be smart and responsible, but our ultimate trust needs to come from God. God holds everything in his hand. Eternal life. This world he created says that Jesus holds it all together for us. So if we forget that and we start putting 100% of our trust in ourselves and in what we can make sure that we have to make sure we're protected, that's probably not going to be helpful to a correct Christian response. So what should be our response? I say go buy everything in the store. I say buy it, bring it home, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because when the needs come, there's going to be nobody out there giving it away. Everybody's going to make sure that it's all for them. But I'm going to give you a perspective in 1 John chapter 3. And this perspective says this. He says in verse 17, but whoever has the world's goods, whoever has the stuff, right? Whether that's all the toilet paper, all the masks, all the gloves, all the food, whatever that is, right? Whoever has that as a Christian, right? What does he need to do with it? This is what he does with it. And he sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him. I mean, if you close your heart when someone has a need, if you buy it without any thought to other people, you're just buying it for yourself, and other people are not as much a priority as you, then I think we're not responding the way God would have us to respond. I mean, we can talk about love, 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 but do you want to know how we know if we really love? Not because I say I love you, not because I can turn to you and say, I love you, and give you a big hug when you're not feeling quite right, or I give you my sweet words, but we don't love that way. This is how we love, right? First of all, if we see our brother in need and all we do is buy for ourselves, how does the God of love abide in us, right? How is that the love of God? It isn't. That's John's point. And look what he says, little children, let us not love with word or tongue, but in deed and truth. Let us love with biblical truth, and let us love with what we have and do. Any failure of that, any failure to tell people to come to Jesus Christ for forgiveness of sins, and any failure to meet their practical needs is not giving you God's love, because that's what God does, right? He sends his son, and he promises to meet your practical needs. So I want you to stay tuned next week, because we're going to be doing this again. I want you to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, or just let me know what you think. And I'm definitely going to be doing this again, and I'm going to be talking about a more broad subject and probably get a little more specific on certain things. And be safe and be wise. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.